My dear YouTube community, I want to talk about, does it matter narcissism or domestic violence? How are the dynamics? I want to talk about this today. My name is Christina Junge, and I'm going to show you 4 phases of the domestic violence cycle, which you can check for your measures of if this fits also for the relationship of narcissism. Okay, the phases are accumulation of aggression, accumulation of annoyance. The next one is going towards a phase of explosion, a phase of distancing, and I tell you what is also super special about the distancing phase, because there's happening the worst things right there in those phases. And then there's a phase of reconciliation, which is also like one of the most important phases in the domestic violence cycle. And you might want to check if this fits for the narcissistic relationship as well. Let's get going. First type of cycle inside of the domestic violence relationship is that there's an accumulation of annoyance, of provocations, of some kind of aggression. This aggression can also be like ignoring, aggression doesn't have to be aggressive. Aggression can either be distancing, disappearing, having a very passive or aggressive passive behavior, or on the other hand, like really outbreaks and minimization and accusations, all what you get inside of those relationships. Accumulation is a moment where you actually already see that something is going on inside of this relationship. And I'll tell you something, these 4 phases I was right now enumerating, they usually, and you might identify this in this narcissistic relationship also, they usually get higher in their curves and in their frequency, In the beginning, they're like smaller and they're not so obvious, and the reconciliation comes really quicker. And as you, let's say, as the person who is the chosen victim, be it of a narcissistic relationship or be it in a relationship more generalized of domestic violence, and if you don't empower yourself inside of this relationship, you will follow up on all these 4 phases, and the cycle will get rougher. The outbreaks will be more violent, will be more like really like causing damage to you, be it psychological damage or of what kind they ever will be. And this is something you should really pay attention to, how your relationship has changed from lighter circles, let's say, of violence, of accumulation, explosion, distancing, and reconciliation, to again get into the phase of accumulation, and how they have changed throughout the time and throughout your relationship. And how this has changed, let's say, has not changed, and you'll recognize that it most likely has not changed once you have distanced yourself and have gotten out of the relationship, have said this doesn't work, and you get in it again, you get into a reconciliation phase, and boom, it gets up again. But this time you have already passed like a certain threshold, and you're going to be even worse than it was before. You probably recognize this. Accumulation. It's a moment where, from the side of the aggressor or the offender or the narcissistic person, if you want to put it categorizing this way, starts provoking, starts aggression against either you as the chosen person to be their victim, or against kids, animals, plants you're having, cars, pieces, decorating pieces, or whatever you have like in furniture, whatever you have inside the house, things you love, you identify with, which are the meaning of this home and of this nest. Yeah. And this is like the object of the anger outbreaks. Okay. Everything in this, at this point in the accumulation phase, is reason for anger and annoyance. When they already break out, or it accumulates like slowly but surely, and the outbreaks are only happening, and this is something I was talking about before, in this double phase of the aggressor, or the narcissist, name it, what you really want to use. The double phase of being towards the outside a person of totally high recognition, or can be really, and doesn't have to be, but it's often like this. And towards the victim, towards the inside of the house, let's say, towards the protected frame where they are dealing with you, they're having a totally different phase where they really are preying on you, There is usually outbreaks of jealousy, of possessiveness, you feel this, and of making you small in all your things, making you feel small in all your things, like devaluating you. And this possessiveness can feel possibly like you might confuse this when you weigh this, This could feel possibly similar to, he or she really wants me, really like is coming forward to, you could, confuse it with binding, with this person being interested in you, this person showing like wanting to have you, wanting you to be theirs, to follow you. But in the end, it's just a form of controlling. There's lots of tension, there's lots of anger and hostility, and it just accumulates slowly, it just goes slowly up in small things, like a little bit of a demeaning behavior, a little bit of letting you know that you're not quite living up to it, criticizing you in a way they have come to do, or they're inventing new ways of doing it. Okay, for the victim, or for the person who is living with a narcissist, the accumulation phase already is getting saturated with fear, with anxiety, with the disillusion. You start trying to ignore what's happening, and are consenting to what's happening. And since this goes in little tiny steps, you consent with each tiny step. Each time you say a yes, when you don't say no, like this, you don't do it, and this person follows through. It's not enough that you said it, I'm going to do another video about assertive communication, and what makes the difference of me saying no and wanting no, or having said it, and the other person having agreed to it at best, while they're not following up on it, and me neither. So watch out. We always have to look what our part is inside of power relationships. Okay. From the side of the victim, it's not only consent and trying to ignore what's happening, but it is also a way of trying to avoid the tension, starting to get around it. And the longer you are in this kind of relationships, the better you are in it, and the more apt you are already in adapting to this form of tension building up, and you might not even notice. You might not want to notice until it breaks out again, because your inner self is so empty, you know, from however you grew up. Maybe this is a relationship where you grew up, but if you find it again in a partner relationship, then you probably come from a way of growing up which didn't make you feel worthy, lovable, good, which didn't promote a high self-esteem, high self-worth, high self-confidence. And the way that the aggressor or the narcissist is treating you is going directly and little by little. This is like every drop. We said this in Germany. I'm just like struggling. Gets the stone and gets a hole into the stone, you know. So you translate it. Give me a comment. Thank you. Sorry. So it's like undermining you little by little. It gets like to you on a very subtle, very from behind way, you know. They're squeezing, and since this is mixed with possessiveness and mixed with holding you high here and there, you know, like making you feel so special at some point again, you might not notice that this is undermining you constantly. So you are probably, or you have become really an expert in avoidance of those tensions, although they are there. So you're trying to not see them. You minimize and you justify, probably in this process, the aggression. So this is the accumulation phase. I start with that. We're here. When we're having a circle with 4 phases, we are here, accumulation. So the aggression augments. The next step is logically a moment of explosion. A moment of acute aggression, a moment with brutal acts, with uncontrollable rage or anger, or something really uncontrollable happens, and you know that it happened, that you are at the point of explosion, because afterwards comes what? Logically, it's the both get like this, oh my God, what happened? So we separate. So we get into the 3rd phase, the distancing phase. I want to keep on going with the explosion phase. In this explosion phase, the victim, be it of a narcissistic person or be it of an aggressor or an offender, however you want to call this, distinguishes itself for being, for you, full of fear, of hatred, feeling totally disempowered, you know, there's no empowerment anymore for you. You feel powerless, you know. There's a lot of loneliness. Do you remember the other video I was doing about how you can identify that you are in a narcissistic relationship, or that you grew up with a narcissistic mother, that you have this very special relation to the loneliness because you couldn't trust. So this loneliness is going to pop up in the explosion phase. Lots of pain, feeling kind of paralyzed. You know, there's a lot of paralysis because everything you tried until this through this accumulation phase into the explosion phase didn't work. And probably you're so long in these cycles that the cycle is not anymore like a small tiny thing that you say, okay, let's get better here, but that, you know, the phases are getting smaller and the outbreaks are getting rougher. And it can be a moment for you in this explosion phase, and this is really important for you also to recognize as a high alarm signal. It is possibly dissociation. Dissociation. What is an association? We come together and we do things. Dissociate means we separate something from something. And what do we separate? What do you think? We separate what we think and what we feel. And usually we separate our feelings because they would inform us logically about what is going on. So we dissociate feelings from, let's say, a clear thinking. They're still kind of connected, so my thinking isn't clear anymore, and my feelings would give me this information, which would give me alarm signals, and I'm like, no, shut up, you know, my brain says, no, shut up, you know, he's not that bad, you know, or she's not that bad, you know, sometimes she's really nice, and she's vulnerable herself, and she's sometimes this and that, you know, and she had a bad, or he had a bad childhood, etc., etc. All right, so you are justifying. Remember, this is still explosion. So there's a moment in any, be it small, you know, you can have an explosion phase in a functional relationship where you have a conflict. You're like, do you know what? This is like really, you know, pissed me off now, you know, and you separate. So the separation moment gives you the idea that something happens, that a conflict just popped open, you know, and you distance yourselves. And the normal thing, there's nothing wrong about it. This is a totally normal cycle until here, let's say, if it wasn't like really with anger. If you have a conflict and you get really annoyed with something that you say, gosh, this now tells me something, and then it's really logical to step back and to say, I need to take a distance from this person. I need to think about what's happening here. I need to get into myself, and when we are calmed down, we need to talk. You know, we need to clear up this relationship and understand what we can do to have a better life together. Yeah, let's put it like this, really generally speaking. So we're already in phase 3, the distancing phase. Accumulation, this is the circle, okay? Accumulation, explosion, we're in distancing. The distancing phase is a very, very, very crucial phase, okay? This is the moment where let's stay with, let's say, your position. If you feel you're in the victim position, if you feel you are exposed to a narcissist or to an aggressor, you, in this distance phase, you don't only think about what was happening and, let's say, breathe and use the distance at first to, let's say, let's put it like this, to get fresh air, you know, to get a clear mind again. It also might, if you don't at this point get out of the cycle, and this is crucial, if you don't get out of the cycle, this distancing phase will be distinguished by guilt, by shame, by fear. Fear would come back, by confusion. Be careful with confusion. If you feel confused, confusion is basically one thing. Your upper part, your head, says, no, it's okay, you can go there, or no, poor guy, you know, you justify and you do, and you explain everything to yourself, and there's a part inside of you, all your feelings, what I was just talking about, which are saying, no, that ain't right. There's something, this ain't right, you know. But since you don't have the self-esteem, the self-confidence, the techniques, you know, the tools to understand how you guys are communicating, to understand how you feel and what leads you to stay in this kind of relationship, the entire inner void, you know, this feeling of connection towards emotionalness. Does that word exist? Being emotional. And living like in this constant, I don't know if you remember, in one of my last videos, I call this the poodle outside on the balcony door, which says, let me in. It's this begging for love, because you're empty with love. This is your void. There's no love inside of you. Okay? So, you're confused. because you're trying to fill your void, your emptiness. You know, you have this for your reasons. You know, I'm not going to get completely into this right now, but this is how you grew up, how you thought you were worth, you were loved, you were fine, you know, as a person as you are, without having to do anything for that. So if you have grown up with a lack in understanding that you are in yourself a completely lovable person, you will choose a partner who has the same problem, but could be the one who prefers to exercise power over you, the power the same person has lost before in their childhood, and deciding to be no longer a victim and making somebody feel like a victim. And you decide, be clear on that. I love you much. Don't get on me. You decided to stay because you don't know better. So there's just one person who needs to change here. Guess who? All right. You might be very confused in this distancing phase. And it is a moment of self-pity and of getting in contact with your pain, which is good if you get the tools to deal with it. If you don't, you'll stay inside of this cycle now and getting into the fourth phase of the cycle, which is the reconciliation. There's nothing wrong with reconciliation. Reconciliation is a totally normal part of the deal if both people change. And if you only change and you say, I'm going to do my transformation, which could be perfectly fine, a part of the distancing phase, that you say, there's something wrong here. I need to look into myself and understand what's going on here, and I need to transform my life. You go and look for help. You go and look for legal and maybe psychological help, for self-help groups. You look for coaching videos. You get a coach, you get a therapist, you get somebody who has lived through it. You just do something to understand more about the matter, all right? The consequence would be separation, that you possibly move, you know, if you live together, or really distancing yourself also with against this person, that they can't come up against you anymore. And it is a moment, and this makes it also so crucial, where you could be having thoughts, ideation of suicide, and having already risky behavior. All right? I'm going to put this light on here. I don't know if that's going to help much, but it's getting a bit darker in Alemania. I could also put on the other light. Hold on, I think I can pause this video. I'll just keep going. So, if you, in this distancing phase, get out of the cycle, look for help, say, I need to transform now. Sometimes it's also, I call this a time of grace, you know, a time of privilege. When people come into our lives, it's probably because you have asked for it, you know, and you now can see it, that they are there and that they help you to get out of this drama, you know, which is really, really, really a hurtful thing. Distancing phase on the side of the narcissist or the aggressor. The aggressor, if they don't want to go through the same phases as you are in the distancing phase, including possibly recognizing that they need transformation, that they need help, that they need to change, that they need to look into themselves, etc., etc., this person will most likely make you feel guilty for what is happening, either you, or saying, well, it's because of the drugs, the alcohol, all the work I'm having, it's because of the kids, because of my character, and keeps on being, if he doesn't change or she doesn't change, and keeps on on having, let's say, at least the attitude, if they don't say it, of just wanting to give you like a lesson, you know, just teach you a lesson in this whole thing, and just wanted to make sure that you understand their point of view. Got that one? Now we're getting, since we haven't gotten out of this cycle, I assume so, a healthy part of you know, having a conflict, distancing myself from the person I had the conflict with, and the next logical point would be a moment of reconciliation. This is what we as humans are looking for, to see if I can make this new, can make this better, that this relationship, I once liked you, you know, we really liked each other, if we can make this work. What happens inside of this reconciliation phase? We also know it as the honeymoon phase. Why is it honeymoon? Because the narcissist or the aggressor shows himself or herself very tender, very enchanting, very friendly, shows remorse, says he's sorry or she is sorry, promises that it won't happen again, you know, thinks the other person just learned the lesson, you know, and will change now, since they're like so convinced that they are on the right point, on the right side. They start making gifts, you know, and they can even go that far, saying if you're in a partnership that they can't live without the other person, or even threatening in the reconciliation phase, with suicide. So, do you remember that the narcissist, as much as the aggressor, has these two sides to him? Not only the two faces we were talking about, but also the two sides of being very vulnerable, and you can tell they had like this hard childhood, you know, they were going through something. You can tell they are vulnerable, they have vulnerability at some points. Do you remember that? But on the other hand, they choose to be aggressive, narcissistic, non-empathic, and to be in power relationships where they are basically dominating the field, the relationship, you know, the house, the home, the controlling, you know, what's going to happen there, how it's going to happen, and that they're always going to be on the dominating part, and be it that they're going to be doing really crazy stuff or saying crazy stuff or making you feel crazy. Remember that one? Okay. So, in this honeymoon phase, this person shows himself or herself again very vulnerable, and you see this, and this person is tender, and you see this entire different side of this person, which make you all question, you know, what was all happening, and you get all into this protecting this person instead of protecting yourself, and instead of looking into yourself, and instead of evaluating what made you be in this kind of relationship, that it goes so much up and down, you know, and is so controlling and so mean. In this honeymoon phase, the the person who is the victim usually feels again fear, confusion, has this big old illusion. It's beautiful, you know, if this would be reconciliation for having this illusion that we're going to build now a new relationship, this would be beautiful. This is a very tender place to be. It is associated with or pity with the other person, or self-pity, or both together. And it is the moment where you usually let go of your plans of transforming, of empowering, of moving out, of learning about the relationship, learning about yourself, and you just fall back into trusting this person again in their empty promises. So this is basically the entire circle of it's called the domestic violence cycle, you know. Accumulation, we go up to explosion, we are like, oh my god, this didn't work out really so well, you know. Distancing, this is your chance. You can go out at this point and get a life, and this other person too. And even if you would both work on your stuff, you know, you can make it. You can make it, but don't try to make it without this person, without seeing really, 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 really change. Not only this person with himself, this person with relating to other people who will help them, but really, really, really seeing changes, which is going to be really difficult to establish, though we've seen it. But I'm not here to make you hope that you can finally stay in a narcissistic or with a narcissistic person in a relationship and that you finally got it, you know, what you ever wanted. This is not the goal to meet. The goal to meet is that you get into yourself, that you start loving yourself, that you start being with yourself, that you start transforming your life, not only outside, you know. It's beautiful to, you know, to get going a little bit and to go to therapy, to go to groups, to read great books, to watch all those YouTube videos which give you all these insights, you know, to go to therapy, to hire a coach, you know, whatever you do to change and to employ all these things, to also look for skills to learn, to look for assertive communication to learn, to look for relating in a different way, to do sports again, to take care of your body in a different way, to really make changes, to maybe get a different profession, you know, maybe study again or do an entrepreneur project and what you've always dreamed of, to just follow now your passions, not being the passion of this guy or looking for to be the fulfillment for him, or this person, be it a guy or a woman, you know, or this person finally having to be the one recognizing you as the one and being all passionate about you, you know, like finally giving you back all this love you were looking for in your life. This is not what you want. What you want is like really growing, really getting into your passions, really seeing what is living inside of you, what is your identity and what's your new identity, you know, to be able to really develop yourself. And to this belongs, you can watch my videos about inner child healing, about getting in contact with strong emotions, just really being at those moments when you feel you need to run again, at those moments when you're in the distancing phase, when you say, I need to do something, you know, that you stay with yourself and in your emotionality and looking for more help. And it's really, it can take for a good while, you know. I didn't say it's going to go quick, but the more you practice what I am telling you right now, the faster you're going to be at that point, that you stay with yourself, that you hold yourself emotionally, that you don't run back to this person or another similar, you know, to fill you. It's just going to be different man or different woman or different type of relationship with a different name. So be really careful about that, you know. What I really want you to do is to not only develop a skill set, develop your passions, develop habits, new habits in your life, you know, to really like get into prayer, you know, to get into being with yourself, getting to envision your life and to follow up on it, to remember your project, something which is really yours, what he or she always wanted to steal from you, you know, and you started to no longer believing in yourself. But I also want you to really stick with your emotions at the moment they're coming up. At the moment you're having this urge to go back, to follow up on his sweet words, on her sweet words, on her like baiting you, you know, like come back, because they need you there for their entire identity. They don't have a better life than that, you know, at this point. So at some level you do feel you're the best choice for them, you know, at this point, because only in this kind of relationship they can exist as something meaningful for themselves, because they get you constantly down, because they're constantly in their minds, you know, better than you are, because they don't have to get in contact with their own feelings and victimness. Get this? So stay with yourself. Look for, in small steps, for relationships. You don't have to tell your whole story right away, you know, and get this on people. Just start relating to people on a rather superficial way, if you like it or if you don't, you know, and see how you can step by step trust in another person, you know, develop this trust, which is essentially a trust into yourself. Okay, trusting to perceive. Now you feel, now you want to feel. You don't want to think, no, he's this and that, or she's this and that, you know. You want to feel, you want to get to this whole feeling part. This is not an easy task. I didn't say that, but I said it's possible. And I said it's the only way for you to heal, and it's the only way for you to get out of these kind of relationships, be it with a narcissist, or be it with an aggressor, with an offender. It doesn't matter which sex they are. Understand? They can come up at any point. What you really need to do is get into yourself. You need to fill this void, and you need to fill it with self-love. Okay, you need to start loving yourself. At the moment you get anxious, you get confused, you get whatever, like all these strong emotions. You can feel guilty, you feel shame, you know, you feel like it's your responsibility, you know. Just stay with yourself, just be with yourself, just hold yourself. Journal if this is helping to you, if this is helpful for you. Do rituals. Rituals are so important and are so powerful, you know. Use a ritual where you can do some dark thing where you want to say goodbye to and get rid of it, you know. I was talking about this before. Or do a ritual where you plant, and where you put your visions in, and where you put your love in, and where you put in that you understand that you are lovable, that you are everything in your life, and that you are enough. And yes, you need people. Of course you need people who will mirror this to you. But first of all, you need to grow this love, this self-love, this self-confidence, this self-image, you know, your identity anew. Okay? I hope this was helpful for you. And you know what? A big ol' hug to you. I love you. Do what you can to stay with yourself. Don't run. And get out of these kind of relationships, you know. If it is helpful for you, keep them on a distance, but learn to manage this distance, you know, that you're only like once a week or once a month texting, you know, if you really need it, you know, and understand how this person employs baits, you know, to get you again, to let you down again, to get your self-esteem low, and all these things. Learn in this process. I know it's not always that easy. I know this. I've been working in domestic violence for decades, okay? And I know how hard it is for people to get out there, you know, because they have, you know, shattered lives, and it is everything what fills them, right? Because they can't fill themselves. And so they look outside of themselves all the time. Don't do this. Okay? I love you much, and I hope you liked the video. Take much care. Bye.